Oh, those good old Midwestern values. Nobody wants to be offensive, even the Twins and the Guardians, but somebody had to win between these two teams that just don't want to offend anybody. Combined 11 runs scored in 3 games over the weekend between the two teams, but somebody had to win that battle of futility, and that somebody were the Cleveland Guardians for the first time since the weekend of April 14th. The Guardians have won a series. The streak is broken. It's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Over there is Justin. I am Jeff. We are, it's nice after losing 5 straight series in a row to pick up a series win against the Twins, even if it started about as ugly as can be. The Cleveland Guardians are still the worst offensive team in baseball, which says a lot when you look at some of the squads out there. But hey, they still managed to win. I have a feeling, though, that when you look at the Tigers, it's going to make this series look like a high-scoring affair. If we got 11 runs in this series, Tigers, Guardians, 2 worst offenses in baseball, we're looking at like 3.5. I don't know how it's going to go. They get base runners. Guys are getting there. They're not manufacturing. It's definitely weird. Their walk rate is down. They're no longer first in stolen bases. They're sliding. There's a lot of things that aren't clicking, but hey, I don't care what isn't clicking. The pitching was there, and they escaped the series with the Twins, somehow winning 2 out of 3 games.
They definitely escaped. The Twins are now they are last in baseball in batting average. I know batting average is kind of a weak way to look at things, but to be fair, the Guardians have scored, or the Guardians have still have 30 less runs than the Twins. Overall, though, offensively, I mean the Twins are running away, are not much higher than them in OPS. Like this was a team of a battle of 2 very bad offenses this weekend, and like I said, the Tigers, it's not going to look much better because their OPS is even lower than the Twins. What was their combined 3 home runs hit this weekend? I think 2 were by the Twins and 1 by the Guardians. The Guardians also, by the way, they won a week between home runs. They last home run they hit was Saturday with Mike Zunino until Stephen Kwan's eventual game winner on Saturday night. So they went a week without home runs.
The Twins are 21st in the league right now in OPS. They've had a few guys who are performing well. They've had some injuries and other things. Cleveland, 30th. Detroit, 29th. So it's just, it's going to be
it's those Midwest values. They want to be. They don't want to be offensive.
Kansas City is 25th, and how do you explain New York at 24? By the way, or Seattle at 22? It's a weird list of teams. Houston is 26th. Your World Series champion Houston Astros. They can't hit either. It's a weird time. We'll have to see how things balance out as the year goes on. But yes, do we want to start with the games? Do we want to start with the roster moves?
Let's start with the games. The Guardians finally won a series. Let's focus on the positives here. No matter how ugly it is, wins are wins, and they needed a series victory very badly, and it came at a good time because you're facing the team that's the top of your division, and the Twins they've pitched great. Ironically, their pitching has been better this year than their hitting. I feel like the last couple of years, their hitting has kept them in it, and until all their hitters got hurt. But of course, Max Kepler had something to say about things this weekend, but great pitching. I think we said this back in Seattle when Shane Bieber lost the first start of the season, right? And it was Hunter Gaddis versus Robbie Ray, and it was like Cal Quantrill versus Logan Gilbert. We're like, well, the Guardians are probably going to lose 3 out of 4 because they've already lost to Shane Bieber start. The pitching matchups don't favor them, so they're probably going to get swept in Seattle to open the year. And then what do they do? I know Hunter Gaddis didn't pitch fantastic in that Seattle game early in the year, but they won that game. They won behind Cal Quantrill, even though he pitched pretty bad. So this weekend, of course, they lose to Bailey Ober Friday night. And you think, oh, well, they're doomed because they're facing Sonny Gray, who I know everyone's like, oh, they've hit Sonny Gray in the past. But got to remember who Sonny Gray has pitched against on this Cleveland team, because it's not it's not these guys. It's guys they used to have, really. So, and then, you had Joe Ryan on Sunday, who has been one of the better pitchers in the American League too, against Cal Quantrill. And Saturday was Logan Allen. So the pitching matchups were fine for Cleveland, but you kind of thought, the Guardians are going to lose every game 2-0 this weekend. And they won one game by shutting their team out. They also got shut out. But look at that. They lost the one game where they were facing a pitcher they should have beaten, and they won 2 games in a row against pitchers that they should have struggled against. So that's just
I'm not going to hear
baseball.
I'm not gonna hear any Bailey Ober slander over here. I've liked him since his college of Charleston days. He's got an ERA.
Come on, if you
one.
would have said going in, okay, who are the Guardians beating this week? Are they beating Bailey Ober? Are they beating Joe Ryan? Are they beating Sonny Gray? I said, okay, well, they'll probably beat Sonny Gray, or they'll beat Bailey Ober and maybe Sonny Gray if they're lucky. I didn't think Joe Ryan.
I mean, this is this team, so of course the one guy is Bailey Ober because he throws the lightest. So
that's right.
If you look at it from what we've seen this year, it makes a weird amount of sense. I'd be curious to go look at his data and see how he's pitched against Cleveland for his career. But yeah, I mean, Battenfield was also awesome in that game. It's hard to really, again, blame the starters. I know people get mad about the whole giving 3 stars. It's Battenfield would get one in that game though. I don't know what I do with the other 2. I guess maybe Naylor for the extra base hit, but but he would have definitely got one. That's a performance that's worth mentioning, worth shouting out. He was really flipping good.
Did for you a guy who had a perfect game?
No.
Did you know he had a perfect game? I did not know. I was at a minor league game, so I was not super paying attention because I was trying to follow on my phone. But the place where I was covering a minor league game doesn't have internet, so very hard to follow things when you're there. But yeah, I didn't know he had a perfect game going. I also was not aware Cal Quantrill had a no-hitter going today because I knew he had a lot of traffic in the second inning, but I did not realize none of those were hits. So when they said
I did know that one.
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't know Battenfield had a perfect game.
No, because I didn't
Quantrill.
Because it's hanging out at those the Friday evening game. I had in-laws in. It was a lot of things going on. But on the Sunday afternoon, it's my daughter and everyone had gone to the pool. So it's just me and my almost 2-year-old. And, I could put the game on my phone and turn off the volume and just kind of watch. So I was a little more locked in. And, he had been resting beforehand and I had missed the first inning. So what I always do is kind of scroll through and catch up. And I was like, oh, nothing. And then, I missed the first 2 because I scrolled through to see, because I think it was in the second is when all those base runners got on. Maybe it was the third. But, I was like, oh, walk, intentional pitch. Wow, he's lucky to get out of that. So I knew that was a no-hitter, and my mother-in-law was actually with us. I was like, there has not been a no-hitter for this team in my lifetime. Because I did debate if I was going to take my son to the pool that was going to close soon. I'm like, we couldn't make it anyways. Plus, there's not been a no-hitter in my lifetime. I think I'll stay here and see if this one can maybe hold up. It didn't, but.
I mean, the 2 guys that were most unlikely to throw a no-hitter this weekend, too. You talk about facing Bailey Ober, a guy you thought you could hit. The 2 guys that this weekend that you would have thought wouldn't have had a no-hitter going would have been Peyton Battenfield and Cal Quantrill.
That's back-to-back good outings for him, though, right? Isn't that we were talking last time?
Cal,
for probably last outing was his best outing of the year because he was so bad in every other setting. So it's that's two in a row.
Yeah, and you pointed out to me today too. You said a lot of swings and misses today, which is very unusual.
11.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a season high for him, without a doubt.
I don't think I saw more than 6 in any box score for him.
Yeah, and he threw a curveball today that I think was the last pitch of his outing that got him out, and he was pumped up about that. So he was throwing a lot of his pitches to him. He threw sinker, he threw the cutter, he threw the curveball, he threw the splitter, he threw out his changeup. I mean, he kind of went kitchen sink today, and it was a lot of fun to watch because after that second inning, the traffic was not there. It was non-existent. And I guess it always just feels like guys are making hard contact against Quantrill, so you never expect him to dominate because he's relying a lot on BABIP luck. But I don't know. The approach really worked today for him. It was sinker heavy, or fastball heavy because he had the cutter as well. But, he busted out a couple other pitches, and he mentioned in the post game too, he said the splitter has been the big thing he's been working on. And he said he hasn't been able to get himself into counts where he can use that because he's so far behind. He got 8 swings on that splitter today and 3 swings and misses. So that's a pretty good percentage for him to do that. And his velocity is looking pretty good. I mean, he was up to 95 today, almost 96. So that's a little bit up for him. I think we're seeing a couple guys. People were worried about velocity early on. We'll see what Shane Bieber looks like in the Tiger series. But Sam Hentges came back, and his velocity looked pretty good. And I think a couple other guys, Trevor Steffen's velocity is starting to tick up. So I think some of these guys are starting to loosen up a little bit, which is good to go. And super good to see Sam Hentges back, too, because he came in and looked really good. Got some key outs on Saturday night. Guardians really needed that. And I still think that it would make sense to have Tim Hare in this bullpen, but I don't know who you send down for him. But Sam Hentges was a much needed return for this team.
No, agreed. He was setting himself up to be part of that like triumvirate at the back of the pen, especially with 99 struggles. It was not clean today. He got through it, but it wasn't clean today. It's
99,
nice
by the way, still coming out first. He's still coming out of the bullpen first. He's like, he was the first guy out Saturday. He was the first guy out Sunday. I don't get it.
I don't understand. Yeah, again, and as I was watching it, all I could think was like, I know they have the data. Why, does Tito not understand it? Is he just so set into his guys that he's going to run his guy, no matter what? But it's like, it's his, he can't spin a fastball. So, but at the end of the day, it's like, it wasn't about that. It was a walk and then a wild pitch and then a sac fly. He almost manufactured a run, I jokingly said beforehand. But before we get into all these specific games, we should do a quick sponsor break here at this point in the show. And our sponsor today are our good friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, that's be one giant contract, you'll be able to be back in the game in no time at all. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Don't forget to check out the Guardians and the Tigers this week on Sirius XM. Search for the Guardians on your Sirius XM app to listen to the broadcast with Tom Hamilton. Before we get into a little bit more here, I know we talked about off air before we came on. The Guardians have kind of fallen back in terms of walks. They're not walking as much, which has been a problem. They've been hitting into a lot of early outs. But look at the box scores from this weekend. I know they didn't walk a ton, but okay. So Friday night, Bailey Ober threw 91 pitches in 7 innings. Not great. That's a lot. It's not a lot of pitches for 7 innings. He got deep into the game for them. And I know the other guys, pitched pretty well, obviously. Sonny Gray, though, 90 pitches in 5 innings. They really got his pitch count up. And then today with Joe Ryan threw 100 and did he get through 5? Did he get in the 6th? He did get in the 6th.
Yeah, he got in the 6th,
So Friday night, Bailey Ober exits before he gets to 100, but he goes 7. And then the next 2 days, they got guys who are over 100 pitches or just close to it in 5 or 6. So, let's see.
Yeah, Ryan finished the full 6. So, like 100 through 6 is a little bit. It's not like dramatic, but it's it was better. It's not as much with the one pitch, but it's still. I'd like to see more of the walks and driving those numbers up even sooner. I'd like to see the 100 when you're at the beginning of the 6th, not after finishing the 6th. That's when they're being more effective, a little more selective.
Get the pitch count up. That's what I'm saying. Like they didn't walk today on Sunday. They walked 3 times against
5 total walks this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think the narrative really is though, and like you said, the walks do need to come a little bit. But if they're driving up pitch counts, I think that's a sign where you're doing a little bit better offensively. I guess you're looking at a silver lining there, even though I know they won this weekend. And then, Jeff, you wanted to bring up the running. So real quick before you do steals, let me say this. When they were scoring this weekend, what they did well is they ran the bases well, first to third on singles. And then I don't know if you saw Saturday that Jose Ramirez going to third base. He realized that nobody was covering third base, so he scampered over there. And Rocco Baldelli, of course, blew his transmission, going out there arguing that Jose should have been thrown out for being out of the baseline, even though the runner, the third baseman who went over to cover was blocking the baseline, so Jose had nowhere to go. And Rocco Baldelli blew a fuse over that. But that's the kind of running they do well. But they are having some issues, which is very confusing, running the bases otherwise.
Yeah, my big complaint is the team for a good chunk of the first month was leading the league in stolen bases, 0 this weekend. And Quan reached base in every single game. Sure, one of them was a home run, so he couldn't run, but Straw reached base in 2 of them. They're running like they did a year ago instead of just going crazy like everyone else has. Like they're not. We've sat there and watched, someone like Anthony Volpe with the Yankees get on first base and take second and third. We've seen teams just know, hey, we don't need to bunt. We can run guys across because the catch, like Connor Wong, I don't know if it's still the case, was throwing out 50% of runners, and that was a godlike number. Guys who can't steal bases are stealing bases, and all of a sudden Cleveland's not. And I don't understand why they're not being super aggressive. When a Quan or Straw reaches first, they should be running every single time. Every single time. They should be basically trying to get that extra base, especially when you don't have power. Like this team needs to run more than a team like the Yankees does. This team that has 18 home runs, the worst in baseball. Washington, I think, is the second worst at 22. Tampa's in the 70s. This team, of any team, needs to run. And they're not doing it enough. They're third in baseball. They're like 11 behind the Pirates. Yeah, they need to run more. They need to be at the top, because if you can't hit extra bases, and they're up there in doubles, they do hit doubles, but they still don't hit a lot of extra bases. They have no power at all. You're going to put more pressure on the pitcher. You want to fill up that pitch count. It's more pressure when the runner is on base, when the runner is a threat to run, and when the runner is taking bases. And then when you're taking bases in the current setup, catchers are extra juiced. I've seen more pitches go into the throws go into the outfield this year than I ever saw before. So yeah, you got to be running. It's set up for you to run. The rule changes were to run. This is a young, fast team. They need to be running more.
Do you think the fact that they have so this last 7 days, this is a 7-day sample. They played 6 games. They attempted 2 steals, and they were 2 for 2 on both of them. But they only attempted 2 steals out of 6 games. Yeah. I agree. That's not good for the team with the skill set and the way they want to play.
The way this team is built with the rule changes, you have to run more.
Yes, and I think the issue is, and I wonder if this is something that's been, maybe this is an internalized thought, but over these last 7 days, and again, this is a 6-game sample, but their OBP is 249 as a team. Do you think there is some internalization that we don't have a lot of guys getting on base, so they're afraid to run into and out to take guys off the bases when they do get on, because they're having such a hard time getting on base in general, that when they do get on, are they afraid of running into and out and costing themselves base runners?
If you're playing with that fear, then you shouldn't be managing this team. Bottom line, you can't.
I'm not saying that's. I'm wondering if that's just like
wherever it comes from, that internal fear. You can't have it. Like for all the reasons, like in a sport,
they're human.
Yeah, but you can't have it. You got to just think, no, they're going to steal that base. Like especially when it's a Straw on base. Like he's one of the most efficient base runners in baseball. Like you can't have any of that thought process. You have to, because you're just hurting yourself. Like everything we know says that stealing. I mean, right now, again, anytime they sack bunt, that should be a double steal. Like it shouldn't be like a sack bunt. You don't need to give away an out. You have an opportunity just to go ahead and take it, because the steal rate is historical right now because of the changes, because of everything working against the catcher. And with a team this young, this fast, this built for speed, built to get on base, they need to steal more. The only thing I can think is this goes back to, like, if you ever read the original Moneyball, where defense doesn't matter and you never steal bases because an out isn't worth the risk. And, it, like, unless there's some degree of that still left in there, I don't know what it is, but I don't think it is, because last year they led the league in stolen bases, right? Weren't they number 1 last year?
I mean, they were up there, but I mean,
they need to get back.
I'm not saying it's a fear. I'm just saying I wonder if because there is always this talk of, okay, they need to. This is part of their issues with not walking, is they need to be able to pass the baton to the next guy, trust the next guy to get it done. Don't try to do too much. I just wonder if some of that plays out in the running game a little bit because, right, this is most of the same group of guys. Obviously, you had Josh Naylor and Austin Hedges a year ago, and now you've got Josh Bell, Owen Miller, I guess. I don't know. Not a great runner, but whatever. So you still got two guys who shouldn't be running on the bases and three guys between Zunino, Bell, and Naylor, although Naylor likes to occasionally take off on instances, but it is essentially the same group of guys, and you don't have Oscar out there, which we're going to talk about in a little bit about him. He's not a runner either, but everybody else in this team should be running pretty well, and they're not. So I just wonder if it's a cross between not getting on base and also being scared to run into and out. I just wonder if that's creeping in. Like it shouldn't come into Miles Straw's head because Miles Straw's been in the league long enough now, and he is the fastest player on the team. Every time he gets on base, he should be running. It doesn't matter who is hitting in front of him or who isn't hitting in front of him. He should be stealing every time he's on base. Ramirez knows too. So I don't know if it's just an issue of compounding, not getting on base, and also not trying to run into and out. Do you want to quickly? You got any stars of the weekend? I mean, obviously Battenfield and Quantrill and Stephen Kwan?
I think Kwan. Yeah, I think it's Kwan. I know people will be like, "Oh, you hate on Kwan," but like, no, he reached base in every single game in the series. He reached 2 hits homer today, game-winning homer. He was solid throughout the whole weekend. He is performing well. So,
yeah. And then Battenfield and Quantrill without a doubt, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, the Guardians made a couple moves over the weekend. The roster is still strange at this point, to say the least. And we've got Guardians and Tigers, a suddenly important matchup coming this week, because who saw that coming? We'll talk about all that next. All right. First of all,
I just want to wait before we go in. Remind you to check out tomorrow's match on XM Sirius Radio. It is Quantrill. Nope, that's wrong. It is Bybee versus Wentz. Bybee on my fantasy team. So go check out Bybee versus Wentz on XM Sirius Radio tomorrow.
Nice. All right. So if you lived under a rock all weekend and you weren't paying attention, Oscar Gonzalez is back in AAA for Tyler Freeman. So Gabriel Arias got a chance in right field on Saturday.
So now, to interrupt you, so now Freeman and David Fry cannot play. So that'll be great.
Yeah, I have to ask. I've watched plenty of Columbus games on MILB TV, but I'm wondering, does that guy actually exist? Is David Fry? Can someone confirm David Fry's locker, his existence? Like, what is happening here? I think we saw Mabry's Valoria more than this. And I know they don't want Fry to catch necessarily. He's a safety blanket, but like not facing lefties. Like they're not doing anything with David Fry. What is he here for? Is he a towel guy? Like, is he someone's? Is he catching bullpens? Like, what's happening here?
Maybe he's like really fun to look at. I don't know. Is he like here for the ladies or the dudes or whoever want to look at him?
He's good guy, David Fry, I hear. So
no, it's weird. I mean, and this weekend was all righties, but even when they've had lefties, we haven't seen him. So it's great. Tyler Freeman's here to not play. So congratulations on your promotion, Tyler Freeman. Have a seat on this bench. We have super glued you to it. You can ask for some paint then or later.
What like, okay, find time for Tyler Freeman to play the way things are going. Like Oscar gets sent down and Will Brennan's having similar struggles. Unfortunately, they talked about it in the broadcast. He is seeing a lot of fastballs upstairs, which was a problem for him last year. And it was a problem for him in the minors, and good velocity beats him upstairs. He's got to figure out a way to get on top of it or foul it off till he waits to get his pitch. And he's got to know guys have this book on him. But so Gabriel Arias gets a chance in right field on Saturday against Sonny Gray. Doesn't do anything. And I think he botched a play in right field. From where I was sitting, I couldn't see it, but it looked like he botched a play. But like, is Gabriel Arias going to be starting in right field like a couple days a week? Like what's going to be happening here? Is he taking Oscar Gonzalez's at bats? And then find me a way to get Tyler Freeman playing time, because Arias went to short today. So he got back-to-back days worth at bats, which that's fine. I've said all along, I don't think Arias is the kind of offensive player that he can afford to sit for 6 days.
Yeah.
Come up and hit. Tyler Freeman could sit for 6 days, come up and ground out to second base or, hit a line drive base it back up the middle. Arias cannot do that, but what do you think the plan is going forward? Like how are you finding at bats for these guys, or how should they find at bats? Let's be honest. I'm thinking Gabriel Arias gets 6 at bats a week, and Tyler Freeman gets like 1.
I think we might see more of Arias. I think we might actually see a stricter platoon with him and Brennan. I think that's in the works. I unfortunately I don't think that Josh Naylor platoon is ever going to happen, even though it needs to happen.
David Fry, no, you can't do that.
I would Ty Freeman, either of them. Pick one. Pick one for the love of all things platoonish. Pick one to platoon there. But I think we'll see more of Gabby across with stuff like that. And when it comes down to the problem with Freeman, it's like, okay, so on a day where maybe, let's say, like, okay, so can we just set up a world where Josh Bell plays first base against lefties? That's not going to be great. Jose Ramirez is your DH. Give him an off day and Ty Freeman at third. Boom. At least that gets Freeman a few reps a week. And
you put Arias in right field.
Yeah, Arias and Brennan being just their own platoon. Right now, Brennan looks a bit lost. It's not good. He may not stick around another month. We'll talk about. I don't think Valera is anywhere close to a savior. You and I have both been lower on him than the overall consensus, but at some point they are going to say, "Hey, Will, everyone kind of struggles with your first try. Go down, get things straight with regular at bats in AAA. That we can't allow you to get things straight in the big leagues. We can't allow you to be this unproductive." So eventually he's going to go down, and maybe Gabby turns into an everyday right fielder. They like him a lot. And I'll stand by what I said the minute that trade went down. He was the number one piece in the Clevenger deal. He was the star. They believed in him then. I don't think that they believe in him any less now. He might get an opportunity to be this team's right fielder. I would not be shocked. But you might see a Valera get called up to be a part-time guy because no rookie is getting a full-time guy on a call-up anymore. It's like outside of Stephen Kwan when they really had no other choice, like, and Oscar Gonzalez last year when they tried everything else. And in terms of Oscar Gonzalez, like, we'll see. He's got great physical tools. All accounts, a great dude. It was a fantastic story, but listen, we always had our concerns, and this is kind of why. And even, Chris Antonetti's comments about, like, he doesn't have to lead the league in walks, but he needs to be a little less predictable. He needs to get a few walks. It feels like teams definitely got the book out on him, and it just wasn't going well. He needs the reps. That was the right call. Like, in terms of who can ride the bench and who needs reps, Freeman versus Gonzalez, no brainer.
Yeah, Freeman can afford not to. I mean, I think we'd like to see him hit a little bit more, but I think he can afford to sit for a couple days. His approach and his swing makes more sense for that. But yeah, Gonzalez's does not. And I don't really know. That's the problem with sending guys out to AAA. And by the way, because this is a great example, Zach Plesac on his first start back in AAA threw a 7-inning complete game in a doubleheader, and gave up 2 runs. This is the great example of being a 4A guy. Like, when you've had a modicum of success at the major league level, it's easy to go back to AAA and just go down there and hit and do well, or pitch and do well, because major league hitters are really good at laying off stuff on the black, and they're really good at knowing what's coming or knowing what your sequencing is, and they've seen you before. And major league pitchers are really good at exploiting your weaknesses because they get a book on you, like Oscar Gonzalez. But guess what? AAA pitchers, they throw meatballs sometimes. They miss their mark more often. They are more likely to live on the fringes of the strike zone. They don't have as good stuff. Like, you're not facing a Sonny Gray in AAA, right? You're not facing a Joe Ryan in AAA. You are facing, 4A guys with the exception of, your Gavin Williamses and some guys like that. But how you do against them is what matters, because those are the guys that are going to be dominating you at the next level if you're not ready. I don't know what Oscar's path back is, truthfully, because like you said, we both had our concerns, and they've got to find someone who can start producing out in right field sooner than later. And I just don't know what he can do at AAA, because there's a good chance. Because what happened to Framil Reyes a year ago? Remember, he got sent down. The guy raked in AAA. Like, I know he had some spouts of where he didn't do well, but like, the guy went down there and he was hitting during his mental break, and it just didn't work. He never came back, and he still isn't hitting. He's back in AAA with the Royals right now. So yeah, what you do in AAA, and it's not about results. This is the thing I think people lose in the minor leagues.
It's about an approach.
Yes, it's not about. Yes, you don't want to go down there and hit 100, or you don't want to go down there and walk 3 times and strike out 30. That's not good either. But that's approach numbers. But yeah, the results aren't always there. And then we did see this morning or on Sunday that Chris Antonetti said that George Valera might get back to AAA here soon. So, like Jeff said, he's not a savior. I'm sure they're going to want him to get some at-bats in AAA. But yeah, maybe sometime before June, if Valera comes back in AAA and starts hitting, and Will Brennan's not hitting, and I don't know, whatever Gabriel Arias does, maybe by June we see George Valera. We'll see what he does when he gets back in a week or so.
Yeah, it's they're gonna keep giving guys opportunities, and again, this is the worst team in baseball offensively. Not the lowest batting average, but second lowest. Lowest slugging. They can't hit homers. They're just not doing anything right. So you should try these guys. And personally, I mean, we know. And the other interesting thing from Antonetti's statement, and by the way, like Antonetti and I saw Jason Lloyd posted about the Valera thing is the first place I saw it online. That was up like this afternoon, in case you missed it, like early in the afternoon. We also saw Cody Morris is pitching down there, pitched, a situation. So there's some good news around on as well as what Savale is going to throw a simulated game. And then McKenzie after that, we had those two are both up to the simulated game point. But yeah, it's
pitching isn't the problem.
No, but you know what happens if you have too much pitching? You call the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, okay, but who do you want? You don't want Wilson Contreras.
I mean, again, like, yes, you don't want Wilson Contreras, but Juan Yepez cannot find a place to play down there.
I wanted Juan Yepez over the offseason.
Yepez, I'm just saying, Juan Yepez, Alec Burleson, they got some guys who can't find spots. And if guys in Cleveland can't hit, then, you can find some other approaches, some ways to do it. But that's a team that desperately needs pitching, and you can never have too much pitching. Never, ever, ever. And yeah, I mean, I look at this team and you're hoping to try to catch what happened a year ago, which was, Stephen Kwan had a great weekend, but he's still not Stephen Kwan of a year ago. Andres Jimenez did not have a great weekend. He is nowhere near Andres Jimenez of a year ago.
Oof. Yeah.
Ahmed is the Ahmed Rosario actually of a year ago. This is exactly what he did before he turned it on. Jose is not, he's been good and he's creeping up and he's getting better.
800, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Is it still under? Did it go back down after kind of? He's not.
It's quite 799. Yeah, his slugging percentage is 435 right now.
Yeah, he's not great right now. He's not bad, but he's not great. Like in the traditional sense of like Jose Ramirez is one of the 5 best hitters in the American League. That is not a true statement anymore. Josh Naylor, no. Josh Naylor, it's been disappointing. Like you can go through. Josh Bell is hitting well, but there's no power, and you brought him in for power. As a whole, this team is just disappointing. So you need some charges from somewhere. Maybe Freeman gets some opportunities. Maybe Gabby Arias getting to play nearly every day. If they decide, hey, we're going to have him play some shortstop, some right field, we're going to get him more bats. Maybe he figures it out. But they need to do something, and they need to get going. And honestly, I'm to a point now where I know I've preached patience with Ahmed Rosario, but Ahmed Rosario just isn't good enough to be patient. And like, I would call up Rocchio. Like he's got nothing left to prove. He's your shortstop of the future. Enough of this junk that we're going to re-sign Ahmed to a contract. You can't sign a dude to a 5-year contract, pay him, $9 to $10 million a year when he can't hit for the first 2 months of the year. And, Rocchio has a chance to be something special. I'm back up Ahmed. Like that's where we should be. Honestly, it shouldn't have been calling up Ty Freeman. No knock on Ty Freeman. He's earned this opportunity. It's fine to call him up. But what this should have been, if he plays, what they should have been is calling up Brian Rocchio, making him your starting shortstop, turning Ahmed Rosario into a platoon partner with Josh Naylor, and then moving on from there. And you know what? If Ahmed starts to heat up and becomes a league average bat, you find other ways to play him and you move guys around. But right now, he's one of your worst hitters. There's no reason to let a guy who's more than ready to hit.
And then real quickly too, I know some people got mad over the weekend talking about how after one of the games, Tito said, we aren't going to AAA for guys to help. There's no one down there who's going to help the guys in the roster hit better. And I know people are saying, well, we have John Canzano, we have Bo Naylor, we have Rocchio or whatever. This is the behind the scenes stuff. Like people took it as, oh, Tito doesn't know who's doing well in AAA, or Tito doesn't believe anybody in AAA. No, that is the behind the scenes Tito stuff. Like stop. Never mind. I'm not going to tell people how to feel, but that's not reading between the lines of a Tito quote. That is him not throwing his guys under the bus. That is why, like, we can be mad about all the things that he doesn't during the games, like not playing Tyler Freeman or not playing David Fry against lefties or 99 being the first guy to the bullpen in a jam, even though he's been terrible this year. That stuff is all, up for debate at times. The stuff behind the scenes, this is him not throwing people under the bus and keeping the clubhouse together, because this is still a clubhouse of young guys, and they're trying to find their way right now, and they're trying to live up to expectations of winning a division, because they did last year, and it's largely the same group of guys minus a couple. So this is him trying to keep guys together and confident, because this is what he is good at. He is good at managing the locker room, and that's, I would say, 80% of what a manager does. So if you read that as Tito has no idea what's going on, I think you're severely misreading the whole entire situation, and you're not really reading the context of his quotes. And that's fair, because he's never going to give you a flat out answer. Hey, I'm just trying to protect my guys. Like, you have to be able to read these and to see what he's saying, what he said in the past. And this is what he is good at doing. So, hopefully that works, but I wouldn't misconstrue that as anything else.
I don't think he's all that focused though on the guys down there either. I mean, I don't think
he shouldn't be. They're not. He's got to worry about 26 guys up here.
But I mean, you could think about them kind of trying to hide the AA arms. So like, he probably there could be a degree of like him legitimately. I don't think it's I would view it as he's focused on the guys on his roster. Those are his dudes. He's going to go to war with those dudes, and he thinks that they're going to all recover. And I don't know how much he does know those other guys in AAA in depth at all.
Okay, but Tanner Bybee wasn't on the roster to start this year. You think he's not ready to go to war with Tanner Bybee every day? Yes, he is. When they get there and they play, they're his dudes.
Yes, 100%.
The guys in the locker room are the guys he worries about.
Yes. So I think that's where the focus is. I do think that he probably doesn't know the minors super duper well. I think it is. You
think he doesn't know what Bo Naylor's doing? He doesn't know what.
Well, I don't think I don't think he really cares what Bo Naylor's doing in a way. I think like he knows to a degree that he's playing well, and that's all that, he probably sees the scouting report, but like he probably just like really stat line, right? Like, not that he'd ever know a stat line, but I'm just saying like he knows the guys are doing what he's getting a coaching report probably, but it's about what he's working on. It's not about the overall.
Right. No, I'm not saying that. Yeah.
So I do think that, there is a limited, and I think if you ask him about guys even down as far as AA, he's probably not that involved. I think it's only those guys on the cusp, and that's goes back.
Well, yeah, I'm not asking him to know about Jose Tena. I don't care about that. I'm just saying, if you think that he doesn't know, if someone's not telling him about Bo Naylor, or they're not talking about situations or scenarios for that stuff.
So you heard it here first. Justin doesn't care about Jose Tena. Run with that one. That's what we just heard.
Thank you for listening. Please download, subscribe, and review, and all that good stuff. And listen to us tomorrow after the Guardians lose 1-0 to Joey Wentz, soft tossing left-hander. Is Joey Wentz a soft tossing left-hander?
He's a left-hander. He's got decent velocity for a lefty, I want to say. I don't think he's super soft. But I officially made Tanner Bybee. I drafted him in our fantasy draft. Speaking of our league fantasy draft, which I'm not good about checking, but I moved him into my starting rotation. So expect him to suddenly start failing, because that's how this goes.
Oh, team injury.
Well, it's not just team injury. I do want to point out my So Rare team drafted Zanino and Jimenez and Clase. So just saying.
Clase was good this weekend.
Yeah, at least there's one, but Miles Straw as well. It seems a kiss of death. This is a long-standing joke amongst my friends, starting when I drafted Jeremy Sowers after his one good second half. I had 5 years in a row where my first round pick got hurt a month into the year and missed the entire year. So I didn't draft him because I was late, but Juan Soto was my first round pick, who was struggling this year. So it's not an injury, but hey, the curse
somehow you're not in last, and somehow you're not in last in the fantasy league. I don't know how. You're actually above me. You're in 7th now. And somehow Zach is in last place. I don't know how. I think it's because he probably drafted Tobias Myers. That's probably why.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Tobias Myers is the kiss of death. Again, that could have been, and I'll point every time, I'm just going to be thankful it's only Junior Camaro, because that could have cost them Camaro and Cantillo. And then we could just all sit here and cry into our drinks if that was the case. But thank you all again for doing your part. Another long show today. We got to be better about that. But I hope you appreciate. If you enjoy the long show, make sure to comment below, so you can always be like, hey, people want that. If you're listening on your iTunes, make sure to leave a review. If you're listening on any podcast service, leave a review, and then also go comment on the YouTube and say, I like the long version in audio, because hey, the more data we got, the better. Thank you all for watching, listening, subscribing, commenting, sharing, having some fun with us. Shout out to, we said Zach is an everydayer. I was trying to think anyone else. I mentioned, I think it's John Faker. John, I'm sorry if I got your last name wrong. Because I know someone who's got a name very similar to yours, who married a friend of mine named Faye. And I don't think you're that dude. You look too young. But thank you to all of our everydayers, and go Guardians, go.